I'd like to inform everyone present that the meeting is being filmed, and by your presence you are deemed to have consented to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. Can I please request that when councillors and members of the public are speaking, not to disclose any personal information of an individual, as this might infringe the rights of that individual and breach data protection rules. This is a formal town council meeting and will be held using the agenda as published. Members of the public will be given the opportunity to speak during public open sessions, but will not be permitted to speak at other times. And colleagues, when you're not speaking, will you please mute your microphone, because this will help to eliminate background noise. Thank you very much. I think we're all here. We don't have any apologies, do we, Mr. Clark?
We do not, no.
No, thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest in any item on the agenda, please? Councillor Fage.
Yes, I should probably declare a pecuniary interest over the parking item, which I think is 11C. I have a parking permit and this will affect the amount of money I spend. So that's a pecuniary interest, so I'll leave the meeting for that item.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, I need to declare a non-pecuniary interest in the item on the tree preservation order because I live in Ivell Gardens. Right, I do have one announcement in that I'd like to record my thanks to Town Council staff and to members of the British Legion for all the hard work to enable a successful remembrance ceremony to take place last Sunday. I also want to say thank you to the techies who provided the sound system and who enabled live streaming to YouTube. That's Nick, Chris and Lee. Thank you very much. And I think, Mr. Deputy Mayor, you have an announcement, please.
Yes, I had the pleasure last week of opening Seasons Fruit and Veg and the new craft beer shop. It was brilliant to see two new independent businesses opening up in the town centre at such a difficult time. And I have heard anecdotally that both have got off to an absolutely storming start, actually selling out a couple of times over the last week. So it's great that the community is supporting it as well.
Thank you very much. That is good news. Okay, I'm moving on to public open session. Now, the normal procedures apply and members of the public may put questions or address council pertaining to matters listed on the agenda. Speakers' names will be recorded in the minutes unless that person requests otherwise, and each speaker will be allowed 1 3-minute slot and there'll be a warning after 2.5 minutes. Now, councillors cannot see members of the public. We've just got a list of names. So if somebody would like to speak, could you please put your electronic hand up? I'm not seeing any hands. Oh, at the top, sorry. So first of all, Catherine Pell-Walpole, please.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, we've got some questions around the redevelopment of the station. We're residents of 18 Station Road, and we've got some questions around the layout.
Yeah, sorry, it's Colin Pell-Walpole, also of 18 Station Road. In particular, details of the design of the structures based on the new site for the buses. Will they be in keeping with the style of buildings in the area and for the town itself?
Well, we'll wait.
Also, things like residential parking. You're removing the parking in that area. So what happens to the possibility of extending the current parking scheme that residents have in Saffron Road to residents of Station Road, so that there is, for example, visitors parking permits. And
finally, we're interested to hear what they're going to do to mitigate the environmental impact of noise from the buses, potential vandalism, litter, light as well,
and the fumes.
Okay, well, thank you for that. You've asked several questions there, and I've made a note of them. When we have our invited speaker shortly, then we'll put these questions to her.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And now Julian Vaughan wishes to speak, please.
Can you hear me?
We can now, Julian, thank you.
Excellent. I've not done it this way before, so I didn't realise I was on mute. Do we get a chance to ask questions after the presentation, which would be probably more helpful?
It's not on the agenda to be able to do that.
Okay, I will crack on now. Then obviously it's a little bit difficult having not seen the presentation, but I will rustle through them very, very quickly. I do have concerns about potential lack of security there. I just wonder if there's any CCTV coverage proposed for the bus station area. Again, the lack of cycle provision. I do understand that GTR will be increasing their provision, but this is going to be a transport hub, hopefully a very successful one, and we should be encouraging cycle use. Also, the issues around lighting, and I do understand the issues about lighting for residents close by. Disabled access, I'm not sure what the nature of those build-outs are, whether they're grass verges or raised areas, but they could present a problem for people with disabilities, wheelchair users. Also, I think we're going to have a problem with buses coming down Station Road. And I know it may not be very popular, but you may think about a one-way system on Station Road. I don't know if it's going to work with the amount of buses down there, because I know using that road, you have to often give way. And definitely the loss of car park spaces. You've lost about 8 spaces, you will have lost directly at the front of where the bus station's going to be. So there are issues there. And I think it's the way the diagram set out, I think you may actually lose a space or two in the actual station car park as well. And we also, just finally, toilet provision. There's a lack of toilet provision there. I know we've discussed it in relation to the train station, but we do need to look at that. And there's also a lack of amenities. So there's no shops proposed there, and I do realise that's not your fault. That's probably more Network Rail. But we want to make this a welcoming place. It seems like a bit of a soulless place at the moment. That's it. Thank you, Madeline.
Thanks, Julian. I've made a note of all that, and Aziza, who's giving the presentation, has heard all that as well, so I'm sure she's thinking about how to cover that.
Thank you.
I've got now John Duxbury.
Interrupt you a second. I did try to speak earlier and raise my hand, and I got booted off seemingly, and when I came back I was a panelist, which I'm sure you wouldn't be very keen on, so you might want to get that changed. But if it is possible for me to speak as a panelist, I can't raise my hand because I don't have a virtual hand. But I would also like to make you aware I would like to speak.
Okay, you want to speak now?
I can speak now, yes. I simply, and it might save a little time actually, I just wanted to ask if it was possible potentially to suspend standing orders after the talk today, to give residents and Julian and other people an opportunity to ask questions. It might save a lot of list writing, and as has been pointed out by Julian already, it's impossible, I think, for residents to know all the questions they might want to ask at this stage when they haven't seen the presentation. And obviously at the end, it's quite likely that Aziza will have left us. So I was just wondering if that council would consider suspending standing orders for that short time.
Okay, thank you for that. Council can certainly consider that. the hands that I had up, the other hands, can we make sure that Hayley is now an attendee rather than a panelist, please? I did have, yes, I've still got John Duxbury. Would John Duxbury like to speak, please? I've still got Hayley on screen and I haven't got John Duxbury. Are you muted, Mr. Duxbury? Okay, I'm not quite sure what's happening. Oh, you're there now, Mr. Duxbury. Can you make sure you're not muted and ask us what you want to ask us, please? Mr. Duxbury?
How's that?
That's fine. We can hear you now. Thank you.
Excellent. Apologies for that. Well, I was going to say something. I'm a resident of 14 Station Road. So my house is on the corner of Station Road and Saffron Road. I've got numerous issues I'd like to discuss. Going on from what Councillor Whitaker just said, I'm happy to see the presentation first, if I then get the opportunity to speak after. But if you're not going to change your standing orders, I can speak now.
Okay, perhaps it would be a good idea at this stage to ask councillors if they would be prepared to raise standing orders after the presentation on the transport interchange. Could you indicate, please, if you're happy to raise standing orders? Yes, that's fine. Councillors agreed to raise standing orders. Mr. Duxbury, if you'd like to wait until afterwards, but if there's anything key you want to ask, perhaps you could let us know now.
No, that's fine. I'll have a look at the presentation and ask them.
Thank you very much. I had Josie Miller. Have you just put your hand down? No, it's still there. Josie Milner, please. Thank you. Can you hear us and can you make sure you're not muted, please?
Can you hear us now? Hi, yes, so we're residents also of Biggleswade. We're actually at the other end in Taverner Drive. Our queries are related to the bus station itself. Given the volume of buses we see in the local area, if they could explain, it might come out in the presentation, but if they can explain why they've come to the conclusion of 3 bus stops, and if there's an opportunity to replace 1 or 2 with pick-up, drop-off or taxi areas, because I see that as a possible benefit for the exchange.
Thank you very much for that. I've got Councillor Whitaker wanting to come back again. Is that right, or are you?
Yes, ma'am, with apologies. I pushed the wrong button and removed her by mistake. So my apologies, Councillor Whitaker.
Well, Councillor Whitaker has spoken once in the public open session. Was there something else you wanted to say, Councillor Whitaker, before we get on with the agenda?
Thank you. I would actually, sorry, very briefly, Julian Vaughan apparently has been removed from the meeting and is unable to get back in using the link, and he's asked if it was possible for someone to let him back into the meeting. If he tries to use the link that he used to get in the first time, apparently it says he has been removed from the meeting. So I was wondering if someone...
Who is that, please?
Julian Vaughan.
Julian Vaughan, okay. Can we make sure that Julian Vaughan is able to watch the presentation, please?
Working on it now, ma'am.
Thank you. And then if we can close down Josie Milner and Councillor Whitaker, please. And then I can bring in Aziza, because that's the next item on the agenda. Okay, so the next item is our invited speaker, Aziza Jeppe, the Principal Highways Officer for CBC, who is the project manager for the Transport Interchange. Aziza, we can't hear you yet. Are you muted still? Aziza? Hello, right, we can see you now. Are you ready to give your presentation, please? You're muted, we can't hear you. Can you unmute, please? You're still muted, I'm sorry. We can't hear you. That's better, I think. We should be able to hear you now. Aziza? No? You're not coming up as muted on my screen, but we can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Aziza, hello? No?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. Sorry about that hiccup. It says unmute on my screen, so I'm not too sure what's the interference. But my name is Aziza Jeppe, and I'm from Central Bedfordshire Council. I am project managing the Biggleswade Interchange project. I've heard some of the comments earlier, and I'm just very thankful that people is here to raise some opinions and views. So I'll just quickly provide a very quick background to the Heath projects. So the Heath is housing infrastructure funded projects. It's a £70 million grant funded program from MHCLG, which is the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, being managed by the HE, which is Homes England. Biggleswade Interchange project is one of those 4 schemes that sits within the Heath. In the last 9 months or so, CBC has been working away, developing and trying to satisfy some of the conditions that sits under that remit of the Heath funds. As part of that funds, we needed to satisfy conditions, and as part of that, that aided signing off the GDA, which is the Grant Determination Agreement, which releases the funds from Heath for the Heath schemes. On that note, I guess many of you have seen previous, presentation slides, etc., regarding the scheme. I don't know what involvement or level of involvement, but I certainly wasn't part of that involvement. I've just come on board with the Heath. We were asked to meet some of these conditions, time constraints, and in satisfying these conditions was one of the key factors in the scheme that was developed today. That, and together with the funding that's under the Heath for the Biggleswade Interchange, was a key factor, of course. So at this point, I'd share my screen very quickly, if that's okay, so I could share my slides. I've got our consultants, ACOM, who's present here today, hopefully Christian Baudet, who's from our design team, and who will talk you through our designs and hopefully cover some of the elements that was mentioned here this evening. I'm happy to take questions after, whichever way is guided by yourselves.
Aziza, should we bring Christian in first so that he can take part? I see he's there.
Okay, brilliant.
Yes. Christian, you're muted. Would you like to? That's it. Thank you. So are you starting, Aziza? Have you got the slides to show?
I'll just share my screen now.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Is that visible to you?
Not at the moment.
Not yet. Oh, I'm saying share screen. It's not, something's not.
You'll be more used to Teams than Zoom.
Oh yeah, but it's not like I haven't shared the screen previously. It's always when you want it to work most, isn't it? Christian?
Yes.
Are you able to share your screen by any chance? Because I'm hitting the share screen button and it's just not allowing me to share it.
Yeah, just give me one.
Sorry, I did update it slightly, but just with some dates, but it's fine as it is.
Right, hold on a mate.
Apologies for that, Christian.
That's okay. Right, let me just go to that. Sorry, I was going to go to where's Teams. Okay. Excuse me a minute. I'm just switching between programs. Right, okay. Is that working?
No, not at
No.
Yeah.
Mine also is just on green, and it's not allowing me to share.
I think it might need Sean to allow it.
Yeah, there we go. It's something's happening now. Well done.
Yeah. Is it there?
We're not
Not
seeing
yet.
it yet.
Not yet.
Right, let me try once more. Sorry.
I think I may have it now.
Yep. Something's happened.
That's me, Christian.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Cool.
in. So Christian,
leave it.
I'll use this. Are you happy then just to talk through the design and try and cover some of those points that was raised earlier? Are you okay just to do that now?
Yeah. Yeah. I can speak through that now.
Okay. So,
if you want.
okay.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of the background, as Aziza said, so we've been undertaking the design of the interchange based upon the specifications and requirements that were provided to us from CBC. So those requirements were the provision of 3 stops, as you have there, to improve access for those walking to the area. But the main scope was really to provide the 3 stops and for each of those to be able to work on their own, so that all 3 could be occupied at the same time. We've also done some extra work, obviously in terms of providing space for people to stand and to wait at the stops, and improve things for them to cross. I should say we did receive some feedback on the layout. In terms of the area that we did the work, you can see it is confined effectively to the triangle, because that was the area of land that we were required to work in. There was also a requirement from Network Rail that we did not reduce, if we could, the number of car parking spaces that are in the car park as it is now. I've had the reference to parking for cycling. Within our scope, we were going to keep the same number of cycle parking spaces as you've got now, but there is in future there is space in the interchange to provide more parking in the future. Aziza may talk about the toilet, but all I can say on that is my understanding is that Network Rail are having a look into the provision of a toilet, but that is not within the scope of our work there. There are some enhancements that we did after some early comments that we received. What we've done is we've extended the 20-mile-an-hour zone, so that includes the roads in front of the station there. So that should improve safety and make it easier to cross the road. We slightly adjusted the curb extensions to try and reduce the distance for those to cross, and in order to make it easier to cross the road. I am aware there is that large area right in the centre there. We are restricted about what we can do there purely because we've got to maintain the space for cars to go in and out of the car parking. But the curb extensions that we've done there should help reduce vehicle speeds. What we've also done is we've got 2 curb extensions that Aziza's pointing to now. That's really there to narrow the road down in order to support the reduction in speeds. You will see various spots on the plans that shows where you can cross the road. And there are some sort of black marks just near the curb build-outs and things, and that represents the tactile paving and the drop curb. So that should help those who are partially sighted in terms of working out where to cross, and the dropped curbs will help those with wheelchairs and push chairs as well. So the intent is that the interchange is an accessible one as well. There will be lighting associated with the interchange area. The exact specifications of that and the times and things that are on, I would suggest, is something that can be up for chats about things. In terms of the pollution and the use of the bus stand, there are certain things there that are down to the operational restrictions and controls. So I'll leave Aziza to speak about that. The other thing to point out is that there are some green areas that have been provided. Those are integrated within the drainage, which is done to filter water, so that we're not placing undue stress on drainage. There is also a green vegetation wall, which is at the rear of the interchange as well, that Aziza is pointing to there. I think that's really the main components of the scheme.
Could you just touch on, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you please touch on the CCTV cameras that we have within the station interchange?
Yeah, so my understanding is that we will be having CCTV as well, and there will be real-time passenger information there as well, as obviously the intent is to inform people how long they would need to stand there and wait for a service, and the lighting and the cameras are there to improve security for those waiting.
Yeah. Okay, and I'll just also add to that we've been working very closely with Govia and Network Rail, and the project manager within Network Rail that's looking after the Access for All scheme, Nicholas Grubb. They've helped us develop the scheme to an acceptable or an approved solution to both the interchange, and that complements the Access for All scheme. So we've worked very closely with him. There's various iterations of this design that was discounted by, various comments that was given through Network Rail project sponsor and Govia. And as Christian alluded to earlier on, the key message from Network Rail was to reduce the amount of car parking spaces being lost as part of the project. We had initially one parking bay lost year, where my cursor is currently. Fortunately, we've been able to mitigate that as well, so that's incorporated. We have had various alignments with this, but that meant the loss of the 6 parking, these parking bays on this end, but that too was discounted by discounted through various conversations with Network Rail and Govia. There were a number of comments made by some of the ward members, Biggleswade Town Council, etc. And we are still looking into a number of those issues. And one of the key elements too that's running in parallel with this particular project is the cycle storage facility and the safety of that storage facility, and increasing the capacity of that storage cycle facility at the moment. We are discussing with Govia and Steve Laken, who's also our cycling officer, who's stepping in as the cycling officer at this point. And they are funding that combined funding the improvement of that cycle storage facility. The safety is a serious concern, and looking to put in electric charging points as well. So that discussion is underway, and we are continuing to do that, and we would like to deliver that as part of the project. Whilst the interchange cannot fund and the cycle storage, that Govia is prepared to fund that element of the works together with the CBC. So that's another extra bit to the project that is not sort of publicized together with the project because it's funded elsewhere. And then there's the wider, what I would like to just say, I mean, there's a few from CBC's perspective, and I understand that's one of my colleagues, Sam Colback, been in touch with Biggleswade Town Council to talk about placemaking strategy. And to develop the placemaking strategy for the town centre. And we've realised and accepted that this interchange is there purely just to unlock future growth. There will be various parts of the puzzle. So there will be a phase 1, a phase 2 and a phase 3, and whatever phases that Sam's perhaps worked with yourselves to develop that placemaking strategy. And one of the other key things we've also accepted to look at was to, I think Hayley mentioned Hayley Whittaker. You know, she's concerned about the pedestrians crossing there, and the current alignment that we have is not a direct pedestrianised area. So she's concerned that pedestrians might cut across the crossing and walk straight across, and that's what they normally would do. But we are looking into making Palace Street pedestrianize that area as maybe a project 2 to this, so a bolt on to the interchange project. So there will be various communications around that coming out. And one of the key things I think we want to roll out is a comms plan for all users to facilitate the way around the interchange. The other good thing is that we're looking and discussing with Network Rail to integrate the times, etc., and the messages from when the trains and the buses are coming, so there can be a connection with that as well in terms of the technology. And there is, I understand, there's a local cycle walking investment plan which was commissioned by CBC as soon as a sustainable transport head of sustainable transport is appointed into the position. They will lead on implementing what has come from the local cycle and walking investment plan, and that's all ongoing. But for now, the focus is purely just on the interchange, and like I said, that is forming part of the main Heath the 4 Heath projects. And there's the GDA, which is what I said earlier, the grant termination agreement, which has now been signed by CBC. There are milestones to achieve, and one of the key milestones, and I'll come on to that next. Sorry, before I go on to that, is there anything else you wanted to say on the design side, Christian, with regards to this plan?
Yeah, so that plan there is really just showing the routes for those that walk and ride to and from the station. So we have tried to work out the routes that you would take. So we've got the all of the drop curbs and crossing places, as I spoke about earlier. And obviously the access for those riding to and from the station is through the main car park. I would say, although there aren't any cycle lanes that have been placed on the road, by reducing the speed to 20 miles an hour, that is in line with guidance in order to make things safer for cyclists overall as well. As we are,
Thank you. And these are just turning circles and traffic, which I can talk through, but I would like to just, I'm conscious of time, but I'm also, I would like to just touch on the the immediate milestones at the moment for CBC, and one of the milestones set as part of the GDA is to submit the planning application on the 1st of December. I just want to also say, from CBC's perspective, we do apologize for the lack of involvement that we've had and the lack of communications from our end. We've acknowledged that was an issue. So I'm very grateful for any comments that's being done here today. And as I said, if I can't answer a lot of these questions now, what I'm planning to do is formulate this. I mean, I've made some bullet points from Julian Vaughan and a few residents of Station Road and their concerns. And if we can't address all of those elements here tonight, what I will do is prepare a spreadsheet. Myself and Christian can go away and look at these elements and say how we've accommodated these in our designs, and also whether they can form part of the wider scope of the project, i.e. the next phase, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And Sam is going to be in touch with your Biggleswade Town Council soon, I believe, and possibly in the form of workshops, we'll try and develop the placemaking strategy. Over to yourselves for any other questions.
Okay, can we unshare your screen then? And then
Yeah, sure.
See councillors.
Yeah. If I could just. Where are you? There we go. Is that stuff? Yeah.
Right, that's better. I can see everybody now. Okay, I think there are going to be quite a lot of questions. So
Yeah.
who wants to be first? Councillors only at the moment. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, thank you. I've got 2 questions, I think. The first is, I may have misunderstood the plan, but I haven't seen any indication of shelters for passengers waiting for buses. It's quite a sort of small plan for me to look at, so
Yes,
it may be that they're there and I haven't recognised them.
My apologies for that.
And the second question is the passenger information boards. I've only seen one on the plan. Again, I might have mistaken and not seen others, but just one in that kind of central area I've seen. Are there any plans to put information boards actually nearer the bus stops themselves?
Are you okay for me to answer that?
Yes, please.
So your first point on the shelters, there are shelters provided at each of the bus stops. They're probably just not indicated, and I'm apologizing for the small scale of the layout, but it's quite difficult to share and enlarge the screen on Microsoft on these presentation slides. So yes, there will be. And with regards to the passenger transfer, the information boards, the ITS boards, there will be one at each bus stop. Rectify me if I'm incorrect, Christian, but I'm 100%, almost 100% certain that is the case.
Well, shown on the plan, we have a large double-sided information totem, I think is the
totem is the
yeah, which will then provide the information on both the buses and on rail services as well, so that you can see that as you leave the buses and you reach the station, and vice versa. So that, for instance, would provide you information on the stops, in terms of the stop that you should use.
Okay, sorry, I'm thinking of the Flitwick Interchange one time. Okay, sorry, apologies for that. So yes, one totem, large totem, but it's not to say we can't have the conversation, with or monitor that and have it implemented later.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Woodhead was next.
Yeah, the sort of the question essentially had already been asked by Councillor Alban, so I didn't have anything else to ask, so feel free to pass it on to someone else.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, councillors? Councillor Pullinger, please.
Thank you. So the Housing Infrastructure Fund is there to support the infrastructure required for the town as it grows. So has it been definitively determined that interchange with only 3 stops will be sufficient for the growth that is expected in the local area, particularly seeing as that growth is in areas further from the town centre, so there'll be a increased reliance on public transport.
Hello, can I approach now?
Yes, go on.
Okay, so with regards to, we've had feedback from our passenger transport unit team and been informed by them through the life of the project and the development of the scheme. We've certainly made some assessments for the interchange. They don't predict that that there will be require further stops at the moment, but if that's the case, like I said, we are prepared as CBC to monitor the project as it is currently. We were given that triangular piece of land and maximize that land space, and the maximum bus stops we could fit in was 3. And whilst for the time being, we don't anticipate any increases in the bus journeys, we have accepted that we may have to look at the wider picture and build on a second or a layover facility as part of the wider placemaking project with Sam and our other colleagues internally. So that's not entirely an answer for you, but that is something that we are conscious of at the moment, at this time.
So are you saying, Aziza, that your bus colleagues are saying that 3 stops are enough, but are they then thinking we will still retain the existing stops on the Market Square?
Yes, that's correct.
So this is 3 more stops, but not losing anything off of the Market Square?
That's not part of the interchange to look at what's happening at the Market Square, unfortunately not.
No, but I'm trying to get to the point of how many stops do your bus colleagues think Biggleswade is going to need in, say, 10 years' time?
I will have to go back and look at the numbers, if that's okay, and feedback, as I said, collectively on all of the issues that's raised here tonight. But that's not the number I have. And Christian, feel free to interject at any point if you do have any of the analysis we did initially.
To say that there's a whole range of things that you can do operationally in terms of working out what the capacity of the interchange area is. So if all that's happening at the interchange is the vehicles stop, they arrive, they drop off passengers and they take on more, and then they leave straight away, you can get quite a large number of vehicles through the station area. I'd say that you could get something that would easily meet the requirements of somewhere like Biggleswade. It becomes a little bit harder when some vehicles are standing there, as that means that they are occupying the space. But you can play around with certain stops being standing stops and certain stops being stops where you drop off and you pick up. So there are various things you can do in order to get quite a few vehicles through that area.
Well, I think we are concerned about vehicles standing, because we do have them standing between trips on the Market Square, and you keep talking about place shaping, which we haven't had any real discussions with Sam Colbeck yet about. But part of the place shaping is to try and stop buses standing on the Market Square and have them standing at the interchange instead, which is why we're all so disappointed with what we're seeing so far. I'm sorry, but we are. I have Councillor North and then Councillor Fage, please.
Well, I just have 2 quick questions. One is, there was some mention of Palace Street and making it and pedestrianising it, which I would suggest is impossible, because there are houses down there and the cars would need to, belonging to the people who live down there, would have to go down there to get to it now and to get out. And of course it is already access only anyway for cars.
Yeah.
So it is I mean, it's not pedestrianised, but cars are only allowed there for access only already. So I don't think that's really a very realistic idea. The other question I have for Aziza or Christian is, when do you expect this to be opened and operational.
Okay. So can I address your first point? Sorry, I may have misled you by saying that is the next project. That is something we're looking into due to comments that's regarding Palace Street. And when I say pedestrianising, maybe not pedestrianising, but improving the route to the town centre for pedestrians. But that's just a second bolt-on project and not necessarily meaning it will be pedestrianised area, sorry. So I may have misled you on that. With regards to the second point that you mentioned, in terms of timescales, so this, in accordance with the milestones achievements under the GDA, needs to be delivered by 2024. So built on the ground by 2024.
So that's 3 years after you've got planning permission then, is it?
No, but we obviously need to, there's certain dates that we've committed to in terms of CDC, and those dates can be brought forward. But because we didn't know the outcome of the planning application, we've put in quite long time, leading times for procurement, etc. So that can happen earlier if we successful with the planning application and we address all the concerns that's been raised through these presentations or discussions, and we all come to an agreement. That can happen much sooner than 2020, by March 2024.
No, right. So you don't really know then at the moment.
No, the funding has to be spent by 2024. This project needs to be built. That's within those timescales, we would need to deliver that project. It could, so whilst that is the timescales we've given ourselves to deliver it, we have every intention to deliver that much sooner. Clearly, there's a few issues to address and concerns that the public has raised, and also the town council and councillors, etc. And we'd like to address those and outline how we're going to move forward before we start looking to detail design the project.
So by the same token, you could actually put back going for planning permission until, say, next spring, so that we can have a proper discussion about it now.
Ideally, I would love to say yes, but unfortunately the GDA, one of the milestones on that drawdown of funds, we need to submit planning application by the 1st, and evidence needs to be shown to Homes England that we have submitted the application.
So we may need to work at a different level to try and get a different timescale so that we can get a better change. Okay, I'm going to Councillor Fage, then I've got Councillor Ramsey, please. Councillor Fage.
I understand we've got milestones. What is the debt, and the HIF money overall has to be spent by the end of 2024. When are we looking at for the delivery of this project then? What's the last milestone to have everything operational?
Is to have the sign-off for the interchange, and that would be, as we've indicated on our current programme, the overall programme shows March 2024.
March 2024, okay, but we're taking 3 years almost from getting planning application to drag out the delivery. I have to say, this town council made huge sacrifices to get the HIF. We took politically very difficult decisions in order to secure that funding. We worked very, very well with central beds all the way to the point at which government assigned that funding to us. And now that that funding has been assigned, for us to be presented with what is almost a fait accompli at the last moment before going to planning is, in my view, completely unacceptable. And I know that other ward councillors share those views because even they haven't been consulted until very recently. This is a fund. What we're looking at here is £2.4 million for 3 bus stops. And it's not even 3 bus stops because we'd be losing one outside Bay Straight House. So it's a net gain of 2 bus stops. There's no taxi rank. There's nothing for autonomous vehicles. There's very little for cycling. It's not an interchange. It's a glorified bus stop. This falls a very, very long way short of what we were expecting. It doesn't connect with any of the place shaping that those conversations have barely even started with Sam Colbeck. So to be hurtling along on this route when actually we have 3 years to spend this money, I think is the height of irresponsibility when it comes to deploying public funds. And I think Biggleswade has been really, really let down by this. I'm sorry to be negative, but we are prepared to work with you, and we are prepared something which is good and which works for Biggleswade. We however many meetings we need to attend, we will get the right councillors there round the table to represent Biggleswade. But to be presented with this at such a late stage is not good enough, and it's not good enough at all. And I really hope what the mayor is saying about potentially pushing back planning permission until the spring, what is the worst that can happen other than we get potentially a slightly better outcome for Biggleswade? And I really think you need to take that back and escalate it right up the chain, because I'll be encouraging our ward members to do the same.
Thank you. Councillor Ramsey. You're on mute, Councillor Ramsey. We can't hear you. Councillor.
Is that better? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, first of all, I agree with what Councillor Grant-Fay just said. This is hardly a democratic process to come bowling in and give a presentation and say, by the way, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to need planning permission for this. It hasn't gone through joint committee. It hasn't gone through anything. It's a complete bombshell. I've been on joint committee and council for many years, and this is about the 5th or 6th attempt at providing some sort of so-called interchange. And we have yet to get anything that we want. And when we do find something that's near what we want, suddenly it's not available. So this is not really what anybody needs, and you can't make a decision like this in a couple of weeks. It needs to be studied and looked at properly and to have more discussions. And the other point I wanted to raise was that you're going to actually make Station Road narrower at so-called critical points. Are you aware of how much heavy traffic actually goes up and down Station Road, quite apart from the fact that's where the police station is located, and a lot of their vehicles need to travel in a hurry when they do leave the station? But there's an awful lot of industrial lorries and heavy traffic goes through there. You can't just randomly say, oh, to fit in with our transport exchange, we're going to narrow the carriageway. You can't just do that. You've got to have discussions with the people that use the road and the council. This is all done in a heap and a hurry. It's hardly democratic and it's not at all practical. I'm sorry you might feel you've had a wasted journey, but you have actually been asked to come along here at very short notice. And you should be saying something to your superior officers or your whoever sent you along to say that they should have come with you and they should have been able to give a proper explanation of what's going on, because they've sent you along here to take all the problems, I think. Thank you.
Thank you to sorry, I just thought I'd let Councillor Ramsey talk first before saying I appreciate the comments, heard Councillor Fage's comments. I can only say I'll take that away and escalate it as suggested. I'm sure the timescales regarding the planning application can be looked at, and we could put in a case to Homes England to possibly accept a delay on that submission. But I would obviously need sign off by hierarchies, and I can only come back on that. But for now, I'll definitely work closely with yourselves, and if there is an appetite to discuss this layout in much closer and just more focused, then I'm happy to do that. But I just have to iterate, and I do feel like I'm saying this and it sounds dismissive if I do, and I just apologize in advance if it comes across like that. But we have a governance under which we had to deliver, and the conditions needed to be achieved within that certain months that we had to deliver those conditions or satisfy those conditions. As part of those conditions, we needed to demonstrate a proposal that we had in a proposal within the budget that was allowed for the interchange under the Heath, and also show costings to represent and give HE confidence that we could achieve that within the scope and the funds of the work. To do that, we had to redesign what was previously promised. We had to really just look and focus on the triangular piece of land, or else we would just not have been in a position where we are signed GDA. That's just unfortunate. And whilst it might seem like we've rushed the process, there has been a number of meetings, various iterations, Network Rail has their own governance rail infrastructure projects, so grip stages that's quite onerous to go through, and if you don't meet those, that sort of governance within their process, we don't have a scheme because they would need to agree with it. I wasn't privy and party to the conversations that happened prior when Network Rail was selling off the land, etc. Apparently, that was a commercial site which Network Rail has retained for the interchange and therefore zoned in on that particular triangular of land. But I get and understand all the concerns that's been raised here, because I gather from all the conversations I've had previously, there's been promises made about the layover, etc., and the market square. But that's never been part of the scope of where this particular project had to go. But I will certainly escalate all the concerns that's come through here tonight.
Thank you, Aziza.
No worries.
Councillor Knight.
Thank you for coming this evening. Definitely had a bumpy ride. I don't know if this is appropriate, but should someone be proposing a motion along the lines of BTC rejects this proposal and requests an urgent review with the senior responsible officer at CBC? I don't know, maybe one for the chair. Just a couple of comments. I think splitting the bus stops between the station and the town centre, Century House, seems crazy. I think I'd call that disintegrated transport planning. And 2.4 million budget, that just seems extraordinarily bad value for money. So I'm completely opposed to this on that basis as it currently stands. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments. Like I said, I can only take that away. With regards to the 2.4 for the 3 bus stops, the amount of services that needs to be diverted as part of this interchange, just on that piece of triangular land, the drainage, the planting, it all accumulates, and hence the reason why the scope was reduced from what was a much larger scope, I believe, to the scope we have now. And the implementation cost, that the 2.4 million is for design and for the build value. So the more we do iterations, the more I have to pay a designer to redesign the project. The less money we have to, unfortunately, build the scheme, and that's not the position I'd like to be in, or anyone, I believe. But we'll make the most of the comments that's come out of today. Certainly take that away. And like I said, I particularly would like to work closer with the town council to understand what exactly has been promised. I've had various conversations with various colleagues, external to this particular Heath funded projects, and I understand from conversations with them that there are ongoing discussions about the wider master plan for Biggleswade Town Council.
Sorry, can I ask a quick supplemental? How much has been spent on the design work so far, please?
Off the top of my head, about 180,000.
Okay. I think you need to know that from our point of view, we have had very little in the way of discussions on place shaping for Biggleswade with Sam at this point, or with anybody else. And in fact, we're about to employ our own consultant to do a place shaping report for us on the back of the place shaping report that he's already done for the neighbourhood plan. So, I can't accept that you keep referring to the fact that we're working on place shaping, because we're not at the moment. It's not really happening at all. I'll come back to Councillor Knight's point about whether we need to take a motion on this, but we've agreed to raise standing orders, and I'd like to give any members of the public a chance to come back and ask questions that they don't think has been covered at this stage. So would anybody like to come back at this point and ask any questions? Mr. Duxbury would. Can we bring Mr. Duxbury in, please? We can't hear you, Mr. Duxbury. Can you take yourself off mute? Thank you.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Right. Good evening, everyone. As I said earlier, my wife and I, we live on the corner of Station Road and Saffron Road, which is number 14. My main interest in this is one of safety. Now, Councillor Grant Fage will be aware of this because I've been hassling him with a load of emails. Councillor Whitaker as well is aware of of this. I've also been hassling her with a load of emails, and I've been trying to get the community safety group on board. Basically, in the past 3 years, 3 vehicles have been written off while parked in the residents' parking bay at the start of Saffron Road. I was hit by a car while I was on the pavement outside the town council offices in 2015. And back in August, a car came through our garden wall. Now, the safety on this corner is absolutely abysmal. And I was really rather hoping to see this addressed in this plan, because I keep on being told that nothing will be done until this station plan comes to fruition. And now, from what I'm hearing, nothing is going to be done at all. And from what I've seen, this is totally inadequate. This needs to be addressed with a matter of urgency before somebody gets killed. And somebody will get killed. The amount, I'm sure many of you, as you've come out of the town council offices, must have seen the speed that vehicles come round Station Road into Saffron Road. Something really needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. At the moment, my car is parked in Station Road because I will avoid putting it in Saffron Road wherever I can, because somebody comes around there. I don't want to lose a third car. And this proposal will get rid of the parking spaces outside my house that I can use. So it doesn't work from that point of view. I also notice, I mean, the comments about Palace Street, the Councillor North said that he's absolutely bang on there. There are houses down there that people will need to access, so that can't be pedestrianised. There's been no mention of station drop-off or pick-up points for vehicles. Currently, people use the parking spaces in Station Road if they're waiting for somebody on a train. Suddenly, that's going to be double yellows. The Mr. Bode mentioned about the 20-mile-an-hour limit all the way down Station Road. Well, I don't ever remember there being an accident in Station Road. I don't think the speed is a massive problem, although I would like to see a 20-mile-an-hour limit, but that should go all the way down Saffron Road as well. And just one further point, sorry to go on, but I feel very passionate about this. The crossings that you've got, they're all in the wrong place. I think what you need to do is come along and have a look to see how pedestrians get to the station. And if they're coming from the town, they come from Palace Street and they go directly across the car park and the station concourse. People will not go down Saffron Road to cross. They won't go down Station Road to cross. They just go directly across. So that whole area needs to be traffic calmed. So some sort of raised area so that pedestrians can cross safely. And pedestrians will take the most direct route. They won't go round. And I see young mums with pushchairs and older people on mobility scooters going straight across the widest point. That needs to be addressed as well.
Okay, Mr. Duxbury, I think we've noted your points.
Thank you.
Some very good points there, but I must move on because we are supposed to be limiting to 3 minutes, but I know
no, that's fine.
people
Thank
feel
you.
very strongly about this. Thank you, Mr. Duxbury. Can we bring in, please, Rachel Willis?
Hello.
Hello, sorry.
Hello there.
It's Mr. and Mrs. Willis, is it?
It is, yeah. I just wanted to back up what John was just saying about people crossing at the widest point. It's not only, I mean, the children, you should see the children in the morning going to school up towards the academy. They will just they cross over that widest point. I was very disappointed to see that that area wasn't closed down more for that reason exactly, because it's just a matter of time before a child gets knocked down there. And also in terms of the speed limit, one problem I've noticed is the Plasmore lorries and the Mount Star lorries come hurtling out of their junction and they stick their foot down. So it feels like they're going more than 30 at the moment, which may just be, that might not be true, but that's what it feels like. And also the Mount Star lorries often park up on Station Road to redistribute their load before they then move off down the road. So, you know, and I'd be very disappointed to see double yellow lines outside on Station Road, because although we are lucky enough that we put in a double parking space on our property, so we can accommodate one car extra for visitors. But if we have more than one person visiting, then they have to park on Station Road. There's nowhere else for them to park. And if you look down that road at any time on the day, there are cars pretty much taking every available space. They do stick to the timing notice, which is there already, but there's very little space other than that.
Okay, and this is Steve, Rachel's husband. We're directly opposite the station, number 16. And I just add to all of that, which I fully agree with both from John and from Rachel. I'm very concerned about noise outside residential properties from buses parked up, leaving their engines running. Occasionally coaches do park in the station concourse and offload and load, and they leave their engines running, and it's really quite disturbing when we're trying to just have our kids asleep at night or whatever. And as well as that, light pollution. Please, I think there's an issue to address even now, because there's a powerful street light on the station concourse which has a safety function, which I accept, but it should be guarded so that it doesn't send light horizontally into our windows. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. You've made some very good points there, and I think Aziza and Christian will have taken those on board. Can I bring you to an end? Is there anything else you wanted to say very briefly?
No, I think we've covered what we needed to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I've got Catherine Pell-Walpole to come back in, please.
Hello. Yes, thank you. My husband's going to speak, actually.
Okay. Hello. I know that you've made a note of my comments before the meeting, and I presume that you will address those in due course. However, there's just one other point. I agree with both Rachel and with John on the safety aspects of that, having experienced the same problems as the two of them. But also, is there any questions been raised about what happens when we require rail replacement bus services? Because when that happens, currently we get anything up to 6 buses parked outside in Station Road, waiting for passengers coming off the trains. And also, what hours are going to be used as this interchange going to be open till? Are we going to be looking at antisocial times? So after 10 o'clock at night and before 7 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, and I think my concern with that was potential vandalism, places where people loiter. I know that if I travel with my job and I come back in the night, if it's dark, you know, I'd be concerned about potential with people hanging around in bus stations. That concerns me around the safety aspect as well as the issue around lighting and around noise, double yellow lines, and so about the aesthetics of the place. I mean, all 3 properties that have been here tonight representing us, 16, 14, 18, we all live in period property, and we don't want to be staring out at a modern monstrosity of a bus station. So, you know, what's the intention in terms of the furnishings And are they going to be sympathetic to the period of properties surrounding the interchange?
Much as you have done already in the town square, and of course in the immediate surroundings of the station building itself.
Okay, I think I'm going to have to move on because
thank you.
The meeting has been going for over an hour now and we've still got a long agenda to get through. I've got Councillor Whitaker and I understand there's a problem with Julian Vaughan, but that he couldn't get back into the meeting, and I don't know whether that can be solved. But Councillor Whitaker, can we go to you, please? And can I ask that the people who have been speaking as attendees be removed from the screen, please, because it's getting so small I can hardly see who's who. Councillor Whitaker, please. No, can't we get Councillor Whitaker? Yes, Councillor Whitaker, please.
I'm actually going to ask questions on behalf of Julian Vaughan. As you mentioned, he's struggling to get back in and he has sent me. Yeah, if possible to get some answers for. The first question is where do the bus drivers go to the toilet if there are no toilets? For those of you that aren't aware, well, I think most of the town councils are, there are issues with providing toilets on the platforms themselves, and it's more or less been ruled out due to cost. And so actually there are no toilets at all at the station. I think if we're spending 2.4 million, this is me adding to Julian's question, but if we're spending 2.4 million pounds on an interchange, I think at least we can provide some toilets, and it would then provide somewhere for the bus drivers to go to the toilets. And also Julian wants to know about the green build out areas. I think as you on the station approach, I think there are two. Are these grass and are they going to get in the way of level access and access routes for the station?
Okay, you're fading, Councillor Whitaker. I think that question was about the two green build-outs and whether they'll get in the way of disabled access. Christian, I think you want to answer that.
Yes, so I can answer that one quite easily. So those green areas will have low-level landscaping. So the intent is that they're not for anyone to walk on, because we're trying to move them away from crossing at the widest part of the intersection, as has been raised. So the plan that Aziza showed of the routes shows the routes that you would need to walk around, but those green areas are specifically there to actually stop people walking instead. Your other question about the toilets, as I sort of intimated, I understand that's something Network Rail are looking at in terms of their land and space there, but that initially hasn't been part of our scope.
Okay. Another question for Julian, if I may. He's just commented that the current zebra crossing is not acceptable, and what is being done to improve the crossing and put it in a better place.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I think it was the current level crossing. What's being done to improve that crossing? That's the crossing from the station buildings across to Bay Straight House, I think Councillor Whitaker's referring to. I think that's the one that Julian is referring to.
So if you're speaking about the crossing in the station car park, that isn't where the works are taking place. So that would stay as things are.
That's still for Network Rail, isn't it?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, our area of works is this extremely constrained triangle. And I would just say this does place restrictions on the things that you can do and squeeze in that space.
Okay, I think I understand that. Councillor Whitaker, we can hardly hear you. You're breaking up. I don't know what the problem is.
Just checking. Julian doesn't have any more comments, so that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I just want to say that I have noted down all Julian's earlier comments regarding the safety, cycle storage provision, lighting, disability users, problem with buses, loss of car park, spaces, etc. So I have noted down quite a bit. What I am going to do is try and tabulate this with Christian, give you a response, and also, like I said, looking forward to future meetings just to work through this project.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, I'm going to reimpose standing orders because we do need to get on with them. Oh, I'm sorry, I've got one more hand. I'll be very lenient. Can Martin come in, please? This is the last one, or else we'll be here till midnight. Mr. Thomas. Can we bring Mr. Thomas in? You're on mute. You need to unmute, then we can hear you. Mr. Thomas? We can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? It's not working, is it? Mr. Thomas, we can't hear you. So can I ask that you get in touch with the Town Council through the clerk with any questions you want to raise, and then we can pass them on to Aziza. Okay, so I'm bringing this to a close. Councillor Fage, I'm reimposing standing orders. Councillor Fage.
Following on, thank you. I think we do need to bring this to a close. Following on from what Councillor Knight said then, I'd like to make a proposal, please. That proposal is that we write urgently to Central Beds Council, whichever officers are relevant, particularly including Paul Mason, since he is the seems to be overall project manager for the Heath, raising our concerns with the lack of engagement that town and lack of input that Town Council has had over this project, and that we work together urgently to revise parts of this project so that it can deliver the value, £2.4 million worth of value for Biggleswade, which is how much it's going to cost. And we can perhaps say in that letter that we'd like to see them push back then some of these timelines so that we see a planning application come forward no earlier than the spring, and certainly not the 1st of December as planned.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Yes, Councillor Knight has seconded, thank you. All those in favour of writing to Central Bedfordshire, please. I think that's nearly unanimous, although anybody against? Abstentions? Okay, fine. Thank you. So we will write to Central Beds, recognising, I think, that for Aziza and Christian, that some of these decisions have been taken above your pay grade, and you've taken the brunt of what's been going on today. We very much appreciate that you've come. We appreciate that you've taken note of all our concerns, and will do your best to come back to us. So thank you, and good night to you. Thank you. Right. I think we need to move on. The next item on the agenda is members' questions. Do we have any? Councillor North?
I just have one question to Peter, if I may, which is what has happened to the depot and storage premises? We were talking about, this has been going on for several years now, and it was raised, I think, in the summer, in July or August, and we were promised an investigation into rental property and a report to council, but we've seen nothing. I've seen nothing since then. I wonder if it can give us an update as to what is happening with it.
There is a Zoom meeting with some members later this week, which I've diaried. Unfortunately, our manager, who is leading on this area, of course, has been on sick leave for a period of time, as you'll probably be aware, Councillor North. However, Philip and I are now taking a lead on producing the paper. We have written a specification. That specification has gone out to commercial surveyors. The surveyors are coming back with some quotations on potential opportunities, and a paper will be formed as soon as possible. But I apologise for the delay. But
okay, fine, thanks. If something is happening, that's fine.
Yeah. We recognise it as a top priority. Yes.
Are there any further questions from councillors? Okay, well, I'm moving on. We're on the minutes and recommendations. So minutes of the meeting of the council on Tuesday the 13th of October. So I'm going to go through as usual for accuracy. So any issues on what is page 1 of the minutes, but page 8 of our papers. Page 9, oh, Councillor Knight.
Sorry, to be pedantic, we normally have a watermark that shows that they're draft because these haven't been approved yet. That seems to be missing this time.
Thank you. Anything else on page 9?
Oh yeah, Madam Mayor, there was it refers to the Central Bedfordshire MP Richard Fuller, but of course it should be North East Bedfordshire.
Thank you.
It's all right, unless we have a new constituency we're not aware of.
Yeah. So that's under the Town Mayor's announcements. It is North East Bedfordshire MP Richard Fuller. Okay. Anything else on page 9? Page 10? Page 11? Page 12? Page 13? Or page 14? No? Okay. Are we happy? Are you happy for me to sign those minutes as an accurate record, please? Could you please show? Yeah. Thank you very much. The recommendations and resolutions of the personnel meeting from the 3rd of November. Sorry, they are on page 14. I shouldn't have taken them as minutes. They're on page 14. Are members happy with the recommendations and resolutions? Can I have a show if you're happy, please?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I was just going to say from, I think I saw a corrected version, which was that the panel would be made up of the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Chairman of Personnel, plus Councillors Knight and Mark Foster. It was a mistake to include the Chairman of F&GP, I believe, on the minutes that were originally circulated. I just wanted to check. I think I've seen another version, but there's so much paper, I can't.
Yeah, I think that's right. Thank you for reminding us of that, Councillor Fage. Are we content with the recommendations with that amendment? Yes?
Yep.
Thank you. Right, I'm going back to matters arising from the minutes now. If I can find my place again. So are there any matters arising? I don't think there would be on page 1. On page 2 of the minutes, which is page 9. Matters arising on page 10.
Please.
Councillor Knight.
Can I ask if there's a target date for the consultation and the implementation of the parking orders, please?
Have we got any further news on that, clerks, please?
There's a parking update under exempt from Nina later in the discussion.
Okay.
And also there's an update from Simon, so the two can connect to that question.
Okay, you happy with that, Councillor Knight?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So you're on page 10. Any matters arising, page 11?
Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, I had one on page 10.
Sorry, go on.
Can we just have a very brief update on progress on the website design, please?
Yeah. We had a kick-off meeting about 3 weeks ago now. We've had further discussions with Tim's Digital. We have done some process maps in regard to key usage by our residents. And Tim is now going on to kind of stage 2 of the process. And we've given Tim a kind of broad sense about a direction of travel from our perspective. So we're absolutely meeting the deadlines that are within the project plan. So, and I can give a more detailed version outside of our discussion this evening, but I'm satisfied that we're making good progress on it.
Thank you for that. Anything on page 11, colleagues? Page 12 or page 13? Okay. I'm moving on the agenda then to planning applications. And I think we all need to grit our teeth at the number that keep coming back to the council. But the first one, which has come to us before, Harrison House Sheep Walk. You can all read the agenda. Dormer extension changes at ground floor level. Any comments, further comments, or what do councillors want to do about this?
Refer to previous comments.
So no objection, and refer to
previous comments.
Okay, I'm getting nods for that. 161 Home Court Avenue, single story front extension. Any comments?
No objection, subject to neighbours.
Are we all happy with that? Yes, thank you. 2 to 6 High Street. Listed building, alterations to courtyard, demolition of single-storey outbuildings and repairs to boundary wall. Any comments, please?
Propose no objection, subject to neighbours.
Okay, are we all happy with that? Yes, thank you. Cramp warehouse unit, Pegasus Way, change of use from storage and distribution to general industrial. Any comments, please?
I'll move no objection.
Thank you. Are we all happy with that? Yeah. Item E, land to the rear of 33 Shortmead Street. I'm not aware of exactly what's changed on this, but I think Councillor Bond is, but he can't really speak because he's now a member of Development Management Committee. Councillor Pullinger, would you like to speak?
Thank you. So you'll probably recall that on previous times that this site has come forward, I've actually suggested no objection. However, I have looked into the plans, and it looks like the number of parking spaces that are being proposed has now been reduced from what was previously in the plans, and therefore actually my view has changed, and I would like to propose that we object to this on the basis of insufficient parking.
Okay, well, you'll see from the agenda that we've objected before on several grounds. The first is overdevelopment of the site. The second one is not access to Sun Street, it's access to Shortmead Street. We must change that, it's Shortmead Street. The privacy of neighbours and in the inadequate parking point. So Councillor Pullinger has proposed to object on the grounds of parking. Councillor Pullinger, are you happy to have those other 3 grounds added?
Oh yeah, you can do.
Okay. Are we content with that? All those in favour, please. Yeah? Yes, I think that's fairly unanimous. So we object on those same 4 grounds, but making sure we say Shortmead Street and not Sun Street. Okay. Phase 6, Stratton Business Park. Variation of conditions 3 and 7 of planning permission. Any comments on this?
I'll move no objection, Madam Mayor. They're very technical variations, so they make no meaningful difference to the design or anything.
Thank you. Are we all happy with no objection? Yeah, okay, thank you. 8 Parry Rise, single-storey rear extension and part garage conversion. Any comments, please? No?
Well, sorry.
Councillor Leslie Fage, yes.
Yeah, just to say we're losing a garage space. It's a 4-bedroom semi. There's 1 car parking space. It's not really an objection because they've been overruled before, but just to make you aware that there is 1 parking space, 4 bedrooms. There is facilities to park off on the road, but the roads aren't adopted. If the trend continues, it's only going to get worse up there. So,
yeah, okay.
Just to be aware.
Yeah, I think as a whole, as a council, we've been very concerned about all of this conversion of garages, haven't we? Councillor Grant-Fage.
On those grounds, I'd actually like to propose we object then if all that is left is 1 on-street parking space For a 4-bedroomed house, that's wholly inadequate. So I propose that we object on the grounds of loss of parking in an area where parking is constrained, where the street is narrow and off-street parking can't be guaranteed.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Yes, thank you. So all those in favour of objecting on the grounds of loss of parking, please. Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. So that's carried. So we object on the grounds of loss of parking. Item H, 8 Wiseman Road, another resubmission, ground floor rear extension. We didn't object previously. What are councillors' feelings now, please?
Refer to previous non-objection.
Are people happy with that? Yes? Yeah, okay, thank you. Asda, Church Street, variation of condition 3, change of opening hours. Comments, anybody? Councillor Pullinger.
So this is a relatively limited extension to the hours over the Christmas period. I propose no objection.
Thank you. Councillor Alban, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy with this if I lived nearby. I don't think so. It's from start at 6 o'clock in the morning, goes on to midnight. So yeah, it's not very many hours where there won't be activity during that period. So I would worry about the effect on nearby residents.
Okay.
And the other thing is I would hope it doesn't have any impact on the times for delivery, for lorry deliveries. So they're very restricted. So I would assume that it doesn't, but I would like to be assured that it doesn't, I think.
Okay, well, Councillor Pullinger has proposed no objection. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Pullinger's no objection first? Thank you, Councillor Foster. So I think Councillor Knight, you wanted to come in.
Very similar comment to Councillor Albone. So I don't have an objection to extending the opening hours of the shop, but I would propose an amendment to the motion to essentially say, but we need the delivery, the restrictions on deliveries to basically be unchanged. They cannot be, they should not be extended.
Councillor Pullinger, are you happy with that? Will you accept that? Councillor Foster? Okay. So it's no objection to the opening hours of the shop, but that the lorry delivery hours should not be changed from the existing. All those in favour of that response, please. Yeah, okay. I think that's nearly everybody. Anybody against? Abstentions? No, okay. So no objection, but delivery hours. Right. Item E. Oh, sorry, we've done that. I'm turning over the wrong page. Item J, Park Corner Farm, Dunton Lane. Variation of condition 3. We didn't object to this before. Any comments, people? No? No objection? Councillor North?
Yeah, well, let's just say no objection because it's an agricultural building. Isn't it? It's just renewing its planning permission, it looks like. It's expired after 3 years.
Right. Councillor Bond, are you wishing to speak?
I am on this. It's just I just find it very confusing looking at the documents with this. This is a condition 3, variation condition 3, and it all talks about environmental surveys. So I don't fully understand what they're getting at. So unless, of course, other people have actually worked it out. Maybe I'm reading the wrong bits, but it doesn't seem to make much sense to me. Okay.
Well, at the moment, the proposal is to not object with agricultural buildings. Do I have a seconder for that? No. Oh, Councillor Alban, you wish to speak?
Yeah, my understanding is it's to do with different forms of license to deal with it's to do with newts, great crested newts, and how you ensure that the development doesn't affect them. So it's just a different way of dealing with it, is my understanding.
Okay. So, Councillor Pullinger, were you seconding the motion to not object? Okay. So no objection to this one. Are we happy? Can you show, please? Yeah, okay, no objection. Land to the rear of 2 Market Square. Conversion of and alterations to an existing outbuilding to form a dwelling. Comments, please. Councillor Pullinger and then Councillor North.
Thank you. So this one, it is in the town centre, of course, being behind Market Square, and it does involve the development of a ground and first floor of a building. So typically that would come into the realms of us not being supportive. However, its location is in a courtyard, essentially behind Greg's Bakers, down a passageway. It's got limited commercial value, I would say, in that location, and therefore I would propose no objection.
Seconded.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the parking arrangements are there. I couldn't see any indicated. So it seems to be that there's no provision for parking.
Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So yeah, there is no parking with it, and with it being town centre, looking in the documents, they talk about it being a sustainable development, etc. I think one thing we ought to add to our comment of no objection is the statement that we've added to previous applications in the town's developments in the town centre, that the property will not be eligible for residents' parking permits.
Okay. Councillor North, I think I've missed you, sorry.
Yeah, well, basically I agree with Councillor Pullinger and Councillor Alban. I think at first sight I felt it seemed very undesirable because it's all a bit of a pokey sort of place. You've got to go through the Undertaker's gateway to get into it, and it's not in very good condition, but they are improving it. You know, if they want to make it into a small little place that's tucked away with no parking, you know, we're talking about encouraging cycling. Well, this person will certainly be encouraged to use a bike if you've got nowhere to put a car. So in that respect, I felt that we should not object to it, and it's perfectly reasonable within our slightly contravening policies about ground floor, but it's not on the street anyway. So I think we should not object to it.
Okay, so I think I've got the proposal at the moment that we don't object, but we make a comment about the fact that there's no parking and that any resident would not be eligible for a residence parking permit. Are we all happy with that? Yes, can you show, please? Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you very much. 17 Darwin Drive, single-storey rear extension.
No objection, subject to neighbours.
Happy with that, everybody? Subject to neighbours? Yeah, thank you. And then on our supplementary sheet, we've got item M, 7 and 11 Britton Place, Sullivan Court, conversion of commercial units to 2 residential dwellings. Councillor Alban and then Councillor Fage.
Yeah,
I
guess that they're doing this because they can't let the actual units, but I worry about the loss of the units. I know they've been empty ever since they've been built, but once they've gone, you can't really get them back again. So I'm really not sure that I would support this application.
Thank you. Councillor Fage and then Councillor Pullinger.
Councillor Alban's quite right. They haven't been let, but there's a reason that they haven't been let, and that's because their rents are so high and you can only get them for a 10-year lease, which is entirely unattractive. So I wonder whether this was Martin Grant's plan all along. I had a little look through. I've actually, I posted about this on social media and I've had a bit of interaction on the King's Reach Community Facebook group, which has been really useful. Without predetermination, of course, I wanted to hear what they have to say. And someone sent through to me an extract from what was essentially the literature that they received prior to buying their house, and which is a Martin Grant home. It says, and I quote, neighbourhood centre, obviously referring to Central Square, comprising of cafe, which has opened finally after 5 years of being empty, local store, we have Sainsbury's, but then also small shops, convenience store, post office, newsagent. You know, if this was the information that residents were being provided with prior to buying their property, I would almost go as far as saying that was deeply misleading. And it tends towards almost breach of contract to some extent. This was the information that people were provided with prior to making the biggest financial commitment most people ever make in their life. So I would like to propose I'd like to propose an objection, and that we object very firmly to this on the grounds that planning permission was granted for King's Reach with a certain amount of retail space. And the reason that they don't want it to be retail space is because they have set unreasonable conditions on those units. Whether that's material or not, I don't know. But for me, I think it's pretty damn good grounds. And I'd actually like to ask if Councillor Foster or Councillor Bond might consider calling this in, actually, because I think this is really quite fundamental to the way that Central Square looks and feels, which is a really important thing for the King's Reach community, which has very few amenities, really. So that's my proposal.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for Councillor Fage's proposal? Yes, I have several. Thank you. Councillor Pullinger, you wanted to speak.
Yes, I think Councillor Fage has pretty much summed up my comments. For the time I lived on King's Reach, which I don't now, but it was very disappointing that at that time the only business there was Sainsbury's. And the reason for that, I suspect, is as Councillor Fage says, that they were not making the properties attractive enough for businesses to sign up to their terms. There's some movement there. There are some businesses there. We've got the barbers, we've got the estate agent, and now the coffee shop, and of course the Baptist Church have a premises there as well. But there's still more premises to be filled. And that we need to encourage them to make it the vibrant centre it's supposed to be, and not turn it over to residential. So completely in favour of Councillor Fage's proposal.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? No? So the proposal is to object. The retail space needs to be retained because it needs to be a proper commercial centre for the King's Reach development, and I'm sure Councillor Fage will help to put the wording right for that after the meeting. All those in favour of that proposal, please. Yeah, I think that's pretty unanimous. Thank you very much. Thanks. Right, we're now on to the accounts. So Councillor Ramsey, please.
I recommend that we accept the detailed balance sheet, the summary income and expenditure by committee, the detailed income and expenditure by committee, and the Lloyds Bank payment listing for September 2020. I recommend that we accept all of those. However, I would like to point out and ask councillors to look at, in their own time, at page 25 regarding the car park and allotments, which might help further discussions on those two matters.
Thank you. Do I have a second for that proposal, please, to accept these figures? Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak, please? So can I have a show of hands, please, all those who accept the financial reports we've had? Yes, thank you very much. Items for consideration. The first one is London Luton Airport with a written report from the Assistant Town Clerk. Does the Assistant Town Clerk wish to say anything to add to his report for us?
Very briefly, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, very briefly. It's essentially, it was a long report. I don't know how many people have read every detail of it, but there was an executive summary, which I think was quite useful. But essentially, there are two proposals which are being put forward as alternatives for the flight paths. One is a fairly narrow one, if members will have noticed, and the second one is a slightly wider one, and both have advantages and disadvantages. But I think that's a matter for debate and for members to consider how you wish to respond.
Councillor Fage.
Had a look at this. So I won't summarise what the proposals are because I trust councillors to do their research and things, but I'd like to make two proposals. The first is that we write back, well, in however we respond, I think we need to raise concerns over air quality. The stack looks to be more or less over St Neots, which we know is on the A1, and air quality around particularly Black Cat going down to Sandy and eventually to Biggleswade is a major concern. So I think we have to raise concerns over the location of the stack on the grounds that it's almost directly over the A1, which is very, very bad for air quality. I think the option that, and I can't remember whether it's option, it's option one. Yes, I know this is not their preferred option, but again, on the point of air quality, having a slightly wider approach would mean the planes are spread out slightly more rather than being channeled, particularly over Biggleswade and Potton, which again would affect air quality. So on those grounds, I think we should raise questions over the location of the stack and come down on the side of option, I think it is option one, with the slightly wider approach so that they're not concentrating air quality issues in one area.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Thank you. Does anybody else wish to comment? No? Okay, so the proposal is to raise concerns about the location of the stack because of air quality over St Neots and the A1 down towards Biggleswade, and to prefer option one because of the wider approach. All those in favour, please. All those against? Abstentions? Okay, so that's passed. So the location of the stack because of air quality and option one preferred because of the wider approach. Thank you. I'm moving on again. The next one is a funding request from BRCC. Members will be very much aware of the community agent who'd been working in Biggleswade for some time, and that we've been funding that role as a council. And we've had some very good reports back when she's come as a speaker to council in the past. That lady has now moved on, but BRCC wish to continue with a community agent, and they're asking us for funding so that they can be sure that they'll get the funding year on year rather than applying under the grant scheme. So comments please, councillors. Councillor Woodhead and then Councillor Fage.
Excuse me. Yeah, I think on the whole, I think we should support their funding request. I think it's the role has proven to be quite useful. I wasn't aware that the lady who was in the role had moved on, so that was a bit of new information for me. I don't think many of the town councillors are aware, but forgive me if they were already, but I wasn't aware. I hadn't picked up on that. And secondly, I partly was connected to my second question, but it would have been interesting to have had a report from her or from BRCC about their level of involvement during COVID and how much their workload has increased and that sort of stuff. That would have just been an interesting sort of counterpoint, especially if they're asking for more funding. I think that would be useful to see the kind of range and flavour of activity that post has been involved in, because if they're not doing things now, then I don't think they're going to be. It's a sort of key time for that role. So it would have been useful to have had an overview. But otherwise, no, I'm very supportive, and in fact, if anything, it's probably something we could do more of anyway in the town. So, yeah.
Well, I think the report does say that the community agent was able to support Biggleswade Good Neighbours, who did an awful lot of work during the first lockdown, and no doubt still are.
Okay.
Councillor Grant-Fage, please.
Yeah, I was going to propose that we support this, and that I'm happy to move those figures for the next 3 years. But if someone new does come into the role, perhaps it would be nice to meet them and to have them come and speak to council after, say, 3, 4, 5, 6 months in the role, and to get a bit of feedback from them, because we know the last one was very, very good, and we do want to secure someone similar. But would like to meet them as well. So I'm going to move that.
Thank you. I think that the RCC need to have some certainty of funding to be able to recruit somebody. It's difficult to recruit if you've only got a year's funding at a time. Okay, do I have a seconder for Councillor Fages? Thank you. Lots of hands going up. Anybody else wish to comment? No. So all those in favour of accepting the request for funding for the agent? Okay, anybody against? No. Okay, so that's passed. Thank you very much. We're now moving on to parking permits, and our town centre operations manager is here.
Sorry, I've declared a pecuniary interest. Do I leave the whole Zoom meeting, or do you want me to just leave my screen? What's best?
Rather than create difficulties, why don't you mute and put your video off for now? I say that because Councillor Fage, if he wanted to know what was said, could soon look at YouTube afterwards. Okay, so Simon Newton, do you wish to add anything to your report at this stage before I open it up for discussion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. There has been something that's come through. It's been highlighted that CBC will not be, during the period of lockdown ending this 2nd of December, they will not be enforcing on-street or off-street parking. Obviously, only if there are safety issues. That obviously puts a different light on my recommendation to council. Now, with CBC not enforcing, our extension permit, as per my report, actually end the 30th of November. Now, the council office is shut at the moment. However, on Monday the 16th, which is this Monday coming, we will be reopening with a skeleton staff. Now, that means that we can actually still issue new permits to workers and also to residents, should they need to do that from the 1st of December. What it does mean is there may be a negligible financial loss for 2 days, which the national lockdown, provided that the national lockdown actually ceases, that we go back to the 3-tier system, that there would only be 2 days that the permits would not be valid. So I'd like to change my recommendation to state that we actually do nothing and continue with how we've already agreed, or how council has already agreed.
So continue with the current system. Councillor Knight, then Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So I'm imagining that maybe some of the residents that have permits that may be expiring at the end of the month may be a bit confused. It's been quite hard to keep track of all the changes. I just wondered, do we have contact with the permit holders, or can we make contact with those for whom the permits are going to expire, to invite them to renew them, just to make sure they don't get caught out? Is that something that can be done without becoming too much of a burden?
Yes, we can certainly do that. We do have details from the initial applications, so that side of it is not an issue.
Thank you.
Obviously, with any decision that is made this evening, then communications will go out onto the website and also social media accounts that we have.
Thank you. Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So I'm a little bit confused with the statement that the extended permits all expire at the end of November. My understanding was that we actually agreed to extend all permits by 4 months, which was the period of the lockdown, and therefore they should all still be staggered in terms of their expiry dates. I'm also conscious of the fact that the lack of enforcement by CBC in December, and also the fact that we really, if there is an opportunity, want to encourage people to come in and use the shops in the town in December. And also, I think whatever we do, we want it to be straightforward to administer. So essentially, the loss of if we were to suspend parking charges from now until the end of the year, the cost of that, I think, is relatively minimal. If we look, and Councillor Ramsey pointed us to the figures for car parking, we've taken, I think, about £3,500 of income since the 1st of August from our car parking charges. It's relative. We're talking about £1,000 a month. I don't think it's right for us to charge people and to ask people to pay this month when we know it's not being enforced, and then that just therefore leaves us December. And I think we've got another item on the agenda coming up where we're considering spending £8,000 on a light show. I think the loss of £1,000 of income to actually try and get people to come and see that light show if they can't walk in is worth it. So my proposal is that we suspend parking charges to the 31st of December this year.
And what would the implications of that be for parking permits?
And we extend all parking permits by 2 months.
I'm just writing this down. Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Thank you. Anybody else wish to comment? No? So the proposal is to suspend parking charges until the end of December and to extend all our parking permits by 2 months. All those in favour of that, please show. Those against, please. Sorry, I'm struggling to see people. Those against, fine. Any abstentions, please? Right. That doesn't make 15, but never mind. That is carried, that proposal. So we've agreed to suspend parking charges from now until the end of the year and to extend our parking permits by a further 2 months so that they will still be staggered when they come to an end. Right. We're still with the town centre manager Christmas offering. Do you wish to add anything to this report, Simon, please? Or do we open
No, I have nothing further to add unless there will be questions.
Thank you. Comments, colleagues, please. Councillor Fage.
Yeah, so thank you for the report. Quite a lot of work has gone into this in quite a short space of time, actually, to get a half decent offering. And the obvious point behind that is that we are in the lap of the gods when it comes to what the COVID situation is. So we want to be able to offer something, but we've had to compromise a little bit on our usual offering. So I'd like to make a proposal. The proposal is to support option 1 with the light show. I think that offers pretty good, I I hope, pretty good value for money. It's not a huge sum, £8,000, and it's within the budget that we'd normally commit to at a town centre event anyway, but to draw it out more over December, so to give people something to come into the town centre to do at their own will in their own time on those various evenings. And who knows, if it works well, maybe it's something that we can build into the budget properly next year. So I'd like to make that proposal. Just two more comments. I noticed we have Santa on the 12th and 19th and music on the 5th and 12th. I guess Santa is a little bit more rigid in terms of his dates, but if we could get a musician for the 19th as well, I know it's too close to Christmas for Santa and he's got to go make presents and things. So we won't be able to have that then, but if we did have a singer or something on the 19th as well, I think that would be good. And if I might just finally just check that we're getting value for money on those musicians. Let's make sure we divide through by the hourly rate. And if it's coming out at 40 or 50 quid an hour for those singers, we know we've got a problem. So we'll have a double check on, we'll just check that that's the case, because I realise we don't hire bands that often and we don't want any of them taking us for fools. But I think this is great and I'd like to propose that, please.
Are you offering to sing, Grant?
Well, I don't think you guys could afford me, unfortunately. So,
thank you. Do I have a seconder for Councillor North's proposal? Thank you, Councillor Knight. Comments from other councillors? Councillor North.
Yeah, I mean, I know Grant means well with this, and they're trying to do something, but I just think it's just a ridiculous waste of money, is this? And I think it would make the town council a laughing stock, quite honestly. And people will be saying, why are you wasting money on this foolishness when the country and the council are in such under such financial stress? So that's my opinion on it, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor North. Councillor Leslie Fage.
I think people will be disappointed not to see Santa this year, and I think we need to uplift the spirits, and I think revenue can be achieved from it by, if people come in, if the shops are open, they'll be spending, they'll come and see it, listen to the buskers, maybe put on some more market, if available, if allowed, under the conditions. I think we need to be a bit more cheerful, particularly in light of what was said earlier at the very beginning of this meeting and where money's spent. I know it's different and it doesn't add up, but let's put a smile on people's face, please.
Councillor Knight.
Yeah, I think it's been a very difficult year for many people. I think for families, anything we can do to try and bring a little bit of festive cheer, I think it's needed. This seems a sensible, a wider range of options were looked at. This is actually on the low end of the options that were looked at from a financial perspective. And I think it's a way of bringing the community together in a socially distanced way. So I strongly support it.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Foster.
Yeah, just a question really, in terms of our financial commitment, bearing in mind the sort of the COVID situation and the potential cancellation of any sort of public or bringing people in some sense. What are our obligations financially or otherwise if we go along this route? Do we have any opportunity to cancel if we have to? What's the impact on the council financial? And don't get me wrong here, I'm not being a killjoy or I'm not supporting it. I'm just interested to know what our what the impact might be on us if it doesn't go ahead.
So that for me.
So Simon.
Simon.
I can confirm that there is no financial commitment. The option one have actually said that if it doesn't go ahead due to COVID, there will be no charge.
So we have the proposal on the table to accept all the recommendations in the town centre manager's report and to go for option one for the light show. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. Any against? Thank you. Abstentions? Thank you. Okay, so that's carried.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Councillor Ramsey.
Could I ask the town centre manager, on the Christmas stalls, he's saying that he's been in contact with local craft fair organisations. Have any of the local charities been contacted to see if they can possibly come along and maybe make up their funds a bit? Or is it only professional craft fairs, people that are coming? Do we know, Simon?
That is something, certainly something that can be looked at, but it's actually looking at the actual surface area that we would need to be operating, and making sure that we are meeting with the COVID-19 regulations.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm moving on the agenda to item E, which is a review of the financial regulations. Mr. Tarrant or Mr. Troppin, do you wish to speak to this?
Philip's going to talk.
We can't hear you, Mr. Troppin. Please, you're muted.
I did actually click unmute. Obviously, it didn't work. I beg your pardon. Yes. What officers are proposing is that we would like to basically bring up to date the permission levels for authorising expenditure in the council. Members may recall that last year I presented a very comprehensive proposal to update and upgrade the financial regulations, because large chunks of what was in the NAUC financial regs, the standard pro forma, were not included in our own financial regulations. Since then, it's become quite difficult, actually, sometimes to get sort of things moving because of the need to come to committee, and this council is a little bit out of line, given its size, with the levels of ability and approvals that can be granted at officer level as against council level. So the proposals, which are in my short paper, which refer to various items in the current financial regulations, essentially are for members to consider how we actually move forward, and to increase the authority, as has been proposed in the summary, for spending authority to officers and to council, increase the threshold for revenue grants that have to be approved, and also to increase the level of any debit card issued against the figures that were previously in the financial regs, and similarly to the disposal or acquisition of property. So for members to consider, and we would urge councillors to seriously take the recommendation on board, but obviously it's for debate.
Thank you very much. Comments, please, colleagues.
Yes, if I may, Madam Mayor, you may not be able to see me raising my hand.
Yes, go on then, Councillor Strong. We haven't heard from you tonight, and then I'll take the other comments.
No, you've been very fortunate so far. I've looked at the amendments. I don't necessarily object to the changes in regulations, but when we're told amendments are proposed for consideration, it'd be very helpful if we had the original regulation and the new regulation set out together to set it in full context. I appreciate fully that we need to review and update things, but in terms of just the presentation, it was disappointing not to actually have it laid out so we could quite clearly see what the current regulation was and what the proposed amendment is. As it is, we've got what the end result is, not the beginning, and I think that that would have been very helpful. That's my observation.
Thank you, Councillor Strawn. I'll go back to Mr. Troppin in a minute. I've got Councillor Frank Foster and then Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, I see on Regulation 4.1, delegation to committee is to be deleted. Can somebody explain to me what exactly does that mean?
Mr. Troppin or Mr. Tarrant? Mr. Troppin?
Shall I? I'll ask the town clerk whether he's happy for me to respond.
You try, Philip, and I'll reinforce what you're about to say. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, essentially, we did have a discussion about these, the town clerk and myself, with the chairman and vice chairman of the Financial and General Purposes Committee, and we thought that the threshold levels that are now being proposed under 4.1 are sensible. I don't think we fully appreciated at the time that there was a side effect on the delegation to committee, in other words, an intermediate level. So it may be possible for members to consider whether, you know, the threshold of 15,000 for the town clerk can then have a level above it before the council then has a higher level. So have a 3-tier threshold beginning at 15,000, then another figure, maybe another 10,000 or whatever members would consider useful and suitable, and then above that the council then goes up to, say, 25,000. But it's just a suggestion. That's one way which you might want to consider it, in order to have a middle tier before things go directly from officers to council.
It's very well put, Philip. Yeah, we've effectively just put it down to two segments rather than 3, but you could have a third one in there with a committee level figure. Yeah.
Back. Councillor Frank Foster.
If I can just come back on that, am I not right that currently committees can take financial decisions up to £3,000, and over that £3,000 that has to go elsewhere? Is that the current position?
The current position, Madam Mayor, is that the council has a threshold of 5,000. The town clerk has up to 3,000. So the committee is between 3,000 and 5,000.
Okay, fine. And one other point I'd like to make on the 15,000, I have absolutely no problem with this happening, but I would hope that when large amounts of money are being spent by the council, that we would be notified of it anyway. Even though the clerk doesn't have to ask us to spend the money, I think we should know when large amounts of money have been spent.
Yeah, I think that's a very sensible suggestion from Councillor Foster, and I'm sure we would follow that process if this is adopted.
Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So as the assistant clerk pointed out, the chairman and myself did meet with the clerk and Philip to discuss this previously. I do believe, though, that the proposed change to regulation 5.7 isn't quite in line with our conversation. So this particular item relates to the granting of money to others, and actually I think they are essentially political decisions, as it were, by members, as opposed to operational decisions by the officers. Certainly for the council at the size it is today. Ultimately, we're making decisions about which applicants do get grants and don't get grants. And I think that is something that should be done by us as members rather than by the officers. So my understanding would be that one would still remain under the remit of F&GP up to, I think we said up to the value of 5,000, and then anything over 5,000 would need to be ratified by the full council, which is a slight modification from the current, which is, I think 3,000 is the limit for the committee for grants.
That's not what normally happens, is it, Councillor Pullinger? Because normally in the last few years, F&GP have gone through the whole grants and made their decisions.
Yes.
And they've just been recommended to council and usually rubber stamped after F&GP have done the work.
Indeed, and that's exactly what I'm proposing continues, except that currently the F&GP are delegated to actually approve the ones that are below 3,000, and only the ones over 3,000 need to come to full council. The what I believe we discussed was that 3,000 would be changed to 5,000 for this one, and it wouldn't be 15. Only ones over 15,000 would come to F&GP, which is what it seems to suggest with the current wording here.
Well, we very rarely have given grants over 15,000.
No,
So
it's
nothing for F&GP to do.
Yeah, but as this is currently written in the report, nothing under 15,000 would come to committee or to council. It would be done by officers, which is not what I believe we aligned to when we met.
Yeah.
Could I comment, Madam Mayor? Yeah. First of all, it's my fault, and I apologise if my report is misleading. That was not my intention. My intention was, and I'm sure it is, as members have said, the intention of council, and quite rightly, that all grants should initially go to Finance and General Purposes Committee. I may have misunderstood the discussion, but I understood that everything would, and this would have been my intention, if badly worded here, that every grant application as at present would go to F&GP.
Yes.
The threshold for going to council was 15,000 and not 5,000. Now, if I'm mistaken in that, I'm mistaken, but I did think that was the figure that was being suggested. So that we'd still have the two-tier system. Every grant goes to F&GP. It can be approved if it's below 15,000, but
yeah,
it's for debate.
So all to F&GP over 15,000 to council.
That was my intention in my summary.
I think if you say that grant applications in advance of 15,000, over 15,000, should be considered separately by council. That's what it comes down to, really, isn't it?
Yes, because I assume we're still going to go through our usual annual applications for grants.
Yes.
Then to F&GP. Okay, so I think we know where we think we're going with this, if I can put it like that. So very similar to the current system. All grant applications will go to F&GP. They can make a decision on anything up to 15,000, and over 15,000 goes to council.
I believe at the present time it's 10,000, so it's just an increase, really.
3,000, I think, isn't it?
No, I think
it doesn't really matter, does it, if we're looking at 15,000?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that's regulation 5.7.
Had we finished with 4.1?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't think we made a decision on 4.1. So do we want a delegation to committee, or are we happy to simply have the clerk's delegation and then council? What do people think?
Well, I think the proposal from Philip is probably a sensible one. I would say 15 for the committee, 20,000 for the committee, and if it's in excess of 25, go directly to BTC.
Sorry, I've lost that now from what you've just said, Councillor Ramsey.
Or for all over items over up to £15,000 would be for the town clerk or CEO to sort out.
Yeah.
If it's between 15 and 20, it needs to come to the F&GP, and they can sanction it or not. But if it's 20 or more, up to say 25, if it goes to 25, then the council needs to be involved, the whole council.
Well, I thought in here the delegation to committees was to all committees, not just to F&GP.
Okay, fine.
Correct.
I don't mind either way. I'm just trying to get it so that the CEO doesn't. I'm trying to understand Frank's concerns about the CEO having more than 15,000 without anybody else knowing about it. And I'm just saying that if it goes over 15,000, that it should perhaps go through a committee or whatever. So what do you think about that?
So, I mean, they're arbitrary figures. Councillor Foster, I'll bring you back in, and then Councillor Pullinger.
Can I come back in after that, Madam Mayor?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I mean, currently, Public Land and Open Spaces Committee, if our outdoor department need a couple more wheelbarrows, and they decide, and it's beyond what the clerk do, that it can come to the PLOS committee, and the PLOS committee can approve it, because we have a budget up to a certain level. Is this now the case that won't happen? am I misunderstanding this?
May I be allowed to respond, Madam Mayor? Just for information, for clarification. The current regulation says a duly delegated committee of the council. And I think Councillor Foster is absolutely right that if they have a budget and can spend within those figures, they would then basically make that decision. That bit has been or would be deleted if my proposal is accepted. What I was suggesting is that the clerk and CEO has delegated powers up to 15,000. 15 to 25 basically goes to a duly delegated committee, not necessarily F&GP, duly delegated as in the current wording, and then over 25,000, and obviously those figures are for debate, but over 25,000 is a matter for full council.
Okay, can we try and move this on a little bit?
I'm happy to support that, the proposal that Philip Truffin's just made.
Okay, what I wanted to do was to try and see whether we've got agreement, first of all, on the 15,000 delegation to the town clerk. Are we all in agreement with that? Because we seem to be.
Madam Mayor.
Sorry, is somebody trying to speak? Oh,
Yes, sorry, can't see me, Madam Mayor. Just to make a point, I will not be voting for these proposed amendments, not because I don't necessarily agree that they're right, or in principle or in theory, but because we haven't got the regulations properly set out before us as to exactly what is proposed. All we're being told is that the changes in authorities are going to alter, but we meant if we're going to approve new regulations, the full regulations should be set out in writing before us. So I shall be voting against them tonight, regardless, because it hasn't been presented properly, although in principle I have no objection to them.
Thank you for stating that, Councillor Strawn. Okay, I was trying to move towards some sort of resolution, but I've got Councillor Pullinger and then Councillor Frank Foster again, and Councillor Fage wanted to come in. I'm sorry, Councillor Fage. Councillor Pullinger.
Okay, so in terms of these levels, so the delegation to committee was essentially being deleted because there was no, essentially that is no longer required because everything can either be dealt with by the clerk or would come to council. I think extending that to 25,000 for committees, I think is another consideration as to whether we want to delegate those things to committee or whether we want to deal with them in full council when they fall between 15 and 25,000. My view is that there isn't really any significant benefit to us as a council in extending that to the committees. The council meets more frequently than the committees anyway, and it's very rare that we actually have any things that come above 15,000. It's when it's that infrequent in terms of making decisions around spending on items in excess of 15,000. I would rather the whole council has a say rather than just a committee. So my view is it should be, for 4.1, it should be as proposed in the report, and we shouldn't add an additional tier.
Okay, I've got Councillor Frank Foster, then Councillor Fage, please.
I'll pass on that now. I think Councillor Fage may well have something he wants to say about the Town Centre Management Committee and the monies they need to spend, but I'll leave it with him.
I think this feels like creating policy on the hoof for me, in my view. I'm not really comfortable with committing to random figures that I haven't been able to consider in advance about what is the right level for a committee to spend. And I say that as a committee chairman. So I'd like to make a proposal that we defer this decision until the December meeting. And we need a report with the existing regulations and what is being proposed.
Second.
Then we can have an informed discussion.
Seconded.
We have a proposal in front of us. I would have preferred if council would have at least agreed to the delegation to the town clerk at this meeting, because we do need to give him more flexibility to get on with what needs to be done. I'm happy to
take that that one item and support that, Madam Mayor. That was given in advance and that was clear, and we did know what the delegated authority was before that. So we are in a position to make an informed decision around that. I would argue perhaps we're not around the others at this point. So it's a proposal.
Okay, thank you for that. So we defer the rest of the decisions to the December meeting, but we make the decision tonight to give authority to spend up to £15,000
Yes.
to the town clerk and chief executive.
Yes.
All those in favour, please, of that? Those against? Okay, that's carried. So we've made the decision to delegate up to £15,000 to the town clerk, and the other issues will come back to council in December.
Yep.
Right, thank you. It's a bit of a marathon, isn't it? We're now on to the proposal for a hearing statement for the examination in public for the local plan. The agenda talks about an oral presentation. I have managed to get a draft hearing statement round to councillors. So comments, please, colleagues.
Excuse me, are we going to do regulation 617?
No, because we've just deferred it all.
That's all been deferred as well as the other?
Yeah, but all that
right.
Deferred is the 15,000.
Right, okay.
Right, back to the examination in public. Councillor Fage.
This is an extremely important agenda item. I know it's a packed agenda. The Mayor has circulated a document which outlines a potential position for the Town Council to take on industrial development. And this is something which we have had a position in the past, but it's never been as sort of laser focused as our position has been on industrial, on residential development. So it's not as mature. And this is the opportunity to put the meat on the bone and to state exactly what our position is on industrial development. That has been circulated. I'd like to propose that we adopt that essentially as the position and nominate the Mayor to go and represent those views in the examination in public. One slight change is that we should maybe call out grade separation for the A1 as being something that we would be supportive of and making a point of that. But otherwise, I'd like to propose essentially what was circulated to councillors a couple of days ago.
Okay, I would say that that grade separation had been mentioned to me, and I have altered that in the second circulation that I did.
Forgive me, I missed that.
I don't think we received that, Madam Mayor.
Well, I sent it to councillors' email. I'm sorry if you haven't received it. That's odd. Okay, there were two. I'm just trying to think what the second change was. The change was to take on board the grade separation, and wait a minute, let's see if I can. Say what the other change was. I'm really sorry, but I thought I'd circulated that to people last night, and I'm sorry if you haven't received it. It was a minor alteration, but you should know, isn't it? Yeah, it's certainly that the paragraph on page 2 was that the conclusion of the RIS2 stakeholder group was that the remaining roundabouts on the A1, including those in Biggleswade, should be grade separated. So that was added to the paragraph after I'd mentioned RIS2, and matter 3, issue 8. The Town Council, as noted above, would prefer to see the site reduced in size to the northern part only, but believes that a green wheel bridle bridge over the A1 and associated links and landscaping should be provided as a planning condition and within any Section 106 agreement, particularly since the land involved is in public ownership. So those were the two paragraphs that were changed. So Councillor Fage has put a proposal forward. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you.
May I make some observations, Madam Mayor?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. My concern is in one respect with regards to the A1. Designating this site for development in the way that it is potentially prejudicing what's going to happen with the A1 in the future. Now, the A1 through Bedfordshire has been unsatisfactory for a considerable number of years. Indeed, this town council was leading in terms of getting the A1 being upgraded to motorway status back in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And in fact, we were halfway through the process. If this development goes ahead here without taking that into account, that is going to block potential for some of the improvements to the A1. I think that's one point. The other issue is, I think, about the land. It's in local government ownership, and you talk about a bridleway over the A1. If that land is developed with view of the Green Wheel, I think it'd be very helpful to have a bridleway over the railway. Now, that can all be part of Section 106 agreements, but of course, the owner of the land is also the planning authority. So whether they would actually put that condition on themselves because it would affect the land value. But I think it's excellent what you've done, but those are just my observations on issues that may impinge upon it.
Okay. Having been part of the stakeholder group for the road infrastructure study, which finished a couple of years ago, if the A1 is going to be rerouted at any time, it's likely to be well wide of this development. Mentioning grade separation, what was decided as far as RIS2 went was that the grade separation would probably be the affordable option for the roundabouts in Bedfordshire. It already presents problems because having slip roads to access a flyover at both Biggleswade South and there at the moment. So there are some real issues about that. It's not part of what's going to be discussed at the examination in public, although what Councillor Strawn says is exactly right. I don't think we can go that wide. I don't think the inspectors will take that into consideration. I don't think it should be part any further than it already is of what we're talking about here, to be honest. But obviously if council thinks different, we think it's different. Further comments? Okay, well, I do have a proposal to accept this as the hearing statement to go forward to Councillor Ramsey.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So for the hearing statement to go forward to the inspectors before the reopening of the examination in public, all those in favour of that, please show. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Excuse me, Mayor, I need to leave the meeting now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
I'm on to items for information, planning application outcomes. Comments, colleagues?
I just had one very quick one. It's not on the list, but I wondered if any light could be shed on what's happened to the Bonds Lane issue, the apartments, etc. I know it was given permission against our say so, but it seems to have dropped off the list completely.
Councillor Bond, do you know the up-to-date position?
What I understand, the 106 agreement was signed, so it's gone through.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Anything else on planning outcomes? No. Councillor Leslie Fage.
Just to say that despite Biggleswade Town Council objecting to the Lawrence Road, it went ahead. CBC have granted it, and I hope we will support residents if any issues arise.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Anything else on the planning outcomes? Right. Crime statistics. We've got a report from the Deputy Office Manager. Yes, she's there. Do you wish to add anything to the report, Helen?
Yes, yeah, I'll just introduce it if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
Good evening, councillors. This evening I'm presenting the crime statistics report for Biggleswade for the month of September 2020. At the council meeting on 22nd of September, members raised concerns over the level of theft or attempted theft recorded within Biggleswade. Therefore, further analysis has been provided within this report, including a breakdown of business theft or attempted theft by road and by ward, as requested. Following members' requests at the council meeting, certain crimes have been recategorised into alternative categories. Theft and attempted theft and business theft and attempted theft have now been separated into different categories to provide further insight into theft-related crimes within Biggleswade. The council wishes to thank Amanda Cawthorne from Biggleswade Community Safety Group for her continued support. Simon Newton will be having a further discussion regarding these concerns with the Safer Communities and Partnership Manager at Central Bedfordshire Council. The report requests member input on the following: whether the report meets the requests made at the 22nd of September council meeting, and if any additional or alternative graphs are required for the 8th of December council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments, colleagues?
If I may, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I'd like to say this is a much better report than we've had for a very, very long time. It's given us a great deal of detail. I think there are elements that clearly can be identified, the thefts around the market square, and I think we should be asking the police for their observations on these. Personally, I'm still quite interested in some of the other offences which haven't been brought out individually, which relates around there was a lot of harassment, ASBO type offences and things like that, and personal offences which may be domestic violence, which we're just wondering the effect of COVID has on them. But I would like to thank Helen and Amanda from the Biggleswade Community Safety Group for the efforts they've made. This is so much more presented than anything we've had for a very long time. I'm just being a little bit pedantic on possibly my request for a little bit more information, but I think it's a much better report, but it does give things that I'd quite like to ask the police for their observations on, and as to how we can actually be more effective in prosecuting some of these crimes, or finding out whether it's just one individual doing all these thefts, or a general increase with lots of people.
Thank you. Are you having any police liaison meetings at the moment, Councillor Strong, or is all that in abeyance?
There have been no police liaison meetings recently. I'm trying to make contact on behalf of the town clerk and myself with the new powers that be in the area, because the Chief Counsel John Boucher retired just before the lockdown started. And I've been in touch with the Police and Crime Commissioner, and I've been being promised contact back from a senior officer, but to date that's not been no response, and I shall be pursuing that tomorrow.
Thank you very much. So I think the best thing is to leave it with you and the clerk to see where you get to with some of the questions that you've raised. Are there any other issues that councillors would like to see raised? No. Okay. Oh, Councillor Fage.
Oh no, only I mean, just an outcome from the crime statistics. Councillor Strawn is quite right about the thefts, and particularly in the town centre. Just an update on the crime working group. We do actually have an action from TCM meeting back in October. We need the crime working group to meet again. Unfortunately, competing priorities with getting Remembrance Service and Christmas lights, etc., sorted have taken up a lot of capacity. But when resources allow, and I hope that will be very soon, we will be regrouping with a clear agenda to get some of the CCTV sorted.
Thank you. Councillor Knight.
Yeah, thank you for the report. It's excellent. Yeah, very concerned about the high level of assaults and violent offences. That seems high and very flat over the last 3 months. So that's definitely something I think we need to follow up on, and obviously the market square as well, a significant increase in theft there. So lots to follow up on, but thank you for this.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Helen, for your input on that. You've heard that the council is very pleased with what you've done, and it's a great improvement. Thank you.
No problem, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I'm on to the consultation of the future of Abbotsbury, which is an item for information, but I think council would like it to be an item for consideration. Councillor Knight.
Thanks. So residents of Abbotsbury need and deserve better high quality accommodation, but I'm certainly concerned over the potential loss of care home capacity in Biggleswade, and I'm not sure we as a council really have sufficient visibility or forecasts of demands that are likely to fall on care homes within our town over the next, say, decade. But we also, I think, have some time to consider this and participate in the consultation, because I think it's running through to the end of January, 29th of January. So I would like to propose that we invite a senior responsible officer from CBC to come and present to us and answer our questions at the next town council meeting, so we can understand the background in a bit more detail, understand the forecast capacity demands in the area, and I think that would then help to better inform our response, please.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Foster, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to second that proposal. I think that's a very sensible thing to do. I do have a concern that with a growing older population and a growing much larger town, we will have more old people as time goes on. That's inevitable. So I wouldn't, I'm really not in favour of losing any space in terms of this, but it'd be very interesting to hear all of the arguments from CBC on this. And I do understand that CBC in the past have not been care home providers, and they took on the care home thing because I believe it was a boob home originally, and they're in a position where they don't particularly want to be in the care home business. But on the other hand, for Biggleswade, we don't want to lose our care home places. And I think once they're lost, they'll be lost forever, which wouldn't be a good thing. So yes, I'd be very interested to hear what the person is going to say, and I think we should invite them along.
Okay, so Councillor Woodhead.
Sorry, yeah, it's just a little point of detail. I mean, I'm absolutely in supportive of all of this. I think it's really it'll be the commissioning team within adult social care within CBC that I think we need to speak to. But I will be supremely conscious they're very busy at the moment with lots of COVID related things. So I do question how quick they will be able to respond to us on this one. But it's just a point of information, that's all. But I think that's who we'll need to get hold of, because they will presumably have the data and the information looking at that those trends going forward. But how quick and how able they will be to respond, I don't know, because of obviously the pandemic. So we just need to be conscious of that. But I think that's where we need to aim our request.
Well, thank you for that extra information, but it occurs to me that if they aren't able to come to us, then we should be given an extension on the consultation. Yep. So we'll see where we go with that. So all those in favour of inviting somebody to the next council meeting to take this further? Yeah, I think that's pretty well unanimous. Thank you very much. I've got one more item for information, which is the work to trees at 30 Ivor Gardens. Are there any comments on that, please?
Noted.
Noted. Okay, thank you. Right. I do still have some members of the public, so I'm on to another public open session. Same rules as before, and I must limit you to 3 minutes now because I was very generous earlier on and it's getting very late in the evening. But would any of our members of the public like to say anything, please, if you show your electronic hand now? I'm not getting any response. No. So I'm going to move on because it is rather late. So we now have some exempt items to consider. So I'd like to close this part of the meeting and ask members to reconvene in a few moments' time to look at the exempt items. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a difficult meeting, a complex meeting, and I'm very grateful for the support of members in taking the meeting forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.